Hello, hello, you made it. I'm so glad that you're here. I hope you have your favorite drink nearby, a hot cup of tea, maybe a little coffee, maybe a snack. I'm a big snack gal. I love snacks. So hope you're taking good care of yourself today. Maybe you clicked on the pod because summer's your favorite season. I don't blame you. As a January-born human being, I always envied the people that were born in summer, thinking, man, a slip and slide, that looks great. With a little birthday cake, some birthday hats, and some singing. Actually, no, we can leave the singing at the door. But anyway, regardless, I'm glad that you are here and spending some time with me because there's a lot of places you could be right now. We are talking about seasons, and so far we've covered winter, spring. Today we're covering summer, and the whole point of this mini-series is to reflect on how the seasons can relate to the seasons that we go through in our lives. And I've been sharing a little bit of how those seasons have unfolded for me over the last 7 years, and I'm excited to talk about summer. So while we're, on the topic of summer, I just want to point out, summer doesn't always have to only be full of rainbows, butterflies, positivity, right? And on the flip, winter doesn't always have to be doom and gloom and storms as well. It's about finding the lessons and nuggets of wisdom within each season and knowing that each serves a purpose for us. And so we can find those little hidden gems regardless of every season. And we also know that life's, right? Life be lifin'. And so we may have ups and downs in every season or moments of time where it feels like a season just won't end. So I think that's all going to be part of moving into being comfortable with flowing through the seasons and maybe taking a step out of them for a moment and being able to look at them and say, what are we doing here? How are you teaching me something? What's the beauty? What's the value in this? Because there is one. There is one, whether we can see it or not. I'm also going to share not only just the summer season for me, but a suggested self-discovery prompt from my second book, Thank You for Dumping Me. It's been out since July of 2024, so it's just 7 months old, but I've got an activity that we'll go through later. And these activities, I call them self-discovery prompts because they are geared towards the reader, and they help the reader to, read through my story about, the blindsided breakup. If you listen to Winter, but maybe you have the book. So, as you're reading the book and seeing what's happening, what's coming up for me in themes, there's a back of chapter activity that's a self-discovery prompt of some way so that you can try on it for yourself. Okay, let's talk a little bit about summer elements. So when you think of summer, what comes to mind? I think of the sun, the warm sun, blue skies. I think of a lot of social activities, a lot of block parties growing up. I lived on a cul-de-sac in the Central Valley in suburbia. And so there was a lot of block parties where neighbors were coming out and getting together. There's a lot of time just out and about, being outside. The days are longer, so that's always great. We've got epic sunsets as well to enjoy. Think, outside, backyard. We've also got summer break for kids. So, road tripping or summer vacations. I know that, I haven't had a summer break in forever, but I come from a long line of teachers. So I'm always remembered that, oh yeah, summer break, that used to be a thing. So maybe there's embracing of adventure and freedom, spontaneity, exploration. I also think cannonballs in the pool. So lots of time just out and about, As kids, I remember just being outside, goofing around, riding our bikes. We used to play cars as bikes, pretending. We even pretended that we were using our blinker. I mean, that's so responsible. That's very cool. Getting our hands in the dirt, all of that. So summer can be a place in time, whether it actually falls in the summer months where you live, or perhaps you're in summer now in the midst of winter. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, summer can be when big moments happen. Big moments, think graduation, summer camp, kind of coming of age moments, having that break in between different school seasons or school years. Perhaps you had your first kiss before high school. Oh, wait, maybe that was just me. Yes, my friends and I made a really corny goal to make out with someone before we went to high school. And anyway, for another time, but I'll never forget that because I was so nervous and so uncomfortable, honestly, but I went for it. So that was that. Summer can also be a phase where there's a lot of intensity and a lot of things happening, social activities, graduation, trips, your kids are home from school. There can be a lot going on. And for me, we left off in spring at Corey and I, the ex from 2018. I keep saying that. The ex from 2018 back into my life and us deciding to give it another go. So we're going to pick up where we left off in this season or in this episode on that. But thinking back to that time in July 2022, there was an intensity naturally happening, right, between Corey and I. We knew that we were going to need to be pretty serious about this in committing to this, what we like to call phase 2, because we'd already done this before. So there was no real reason to go at it again and give it another shot unless we were serious about committing to giving it another shot, right? We weren't just kind of dating to date. We were dating with the intention that, no, we are fully going to lean into this. Did it mean we're going to get married? No. It just meant we took some thoughtful consideration and fully both decided, yes, we're doing this again. So this summer period for me was intense and full of emotions because I was rekindling a relationship, right, that meant so much to me, my most significant relationship thus far. So there was a lot of heat, not only from the sun, but also cultivating within and around me in this newly rekindled relationship. There was a lot of warmth from familiarity and really just very hopeful, brightness. I think, brightness from the sun of possibility. I think of a bright sunrise, to really visually represent this time period. Summer can also be, right, a time for pausing and retreating. And by pausing and retreating, I don't mean the retreating that we tend to do in our winters, where there's a going within and really kind of a turning down of the volume, but pausing and retreating from being productive in the traditional way of, traditionally I'm going to do these things on my list, cross them off, and then at the end I'm going to have an output, something to AKA, show for it. So I'm more of thinking about this as a time to just play, right? Let's just use summer, think of summer season as a time just to step back from, the hustle as we know it and just lean into more of the play as a pause, as a retreat. So with that, right, summer being high energy, lots going on, a lot of outward external focus and things happening, it's a season that demands care and balance. And I love this analogy that my acupuncturist, Erin, always tells me because it's so accurate. She says, look, Jess, you're a fiery person by nature. You have a lot of fiery qualities, right? I like to move quickly. I like to move fast. I like to be social. I like to be in things, all around. And so she likes to give me an analogy about how, you can think of me as a fire, just, the element itself. And so when you think about a fire burning, she gives me this visual of, you want to be a contained fire, like a warm campfire outside with your friends. They're all huddled around it. They're enjoying the warmth of the fire. The fire is both giving some of its energy, but it's not burning the whole campsite out, right? So containing your fire, containing your energy in summer, and using that care and balance to keep your fire from turning into a wildfire, burning everything in its wake. And so this requires, paying attention, giving yourself what you need when you need it so that you can sustain throughout the whole summer months. And honestly, it's going to help us set up for a better fall, which comes next. And we won't have to do as much reset in fall if we're sustaining and taking good care and not letting ourselves burn out and burn up everything in our sight. Because what we'll be left with is just a pile of burnt bits, ash. And in fall, you could always rise like the phoenix out of the ash, which I fully support and fully support, full stop. But we want to make sure that we're contained. And this doesn't mean hold yourself back in any way. It just means contained, safe, tended to, and cared for. So Corey and I are beginning again, and we focused, fully committed on to phase 2. And something that I really love that we did was we really allowed ourselves to get to know each other with fresh perspectives. So we had this deep inner knowing and awareness of each other because we had dated, right, for 3 years before. But there was this spatialness, space that we allowed each other to be in and operate in that didn't tie us down or anchor us to an old way of being. And that allowed us to get to know each other in this new way because there was a lot of newness to know. There was a lot of life that happened in between the breakup for those 4 years. And so I loved how we were open to getting to know that and didn't just pigeonhole us into kind of the older versions of ourselves, which I think allowed us to really blossom and enjoy this time of rekindling. So it felt right, and we leaned into it. One of the events that we did first, being back together, was camping with his family. And that was the first time that his parents, brother, and his brother's wife got to meet Charlie, our little Charlie bear, our golden doodle. And it was great. It was like time hadn't passed. I absolutely adore his parents and love his family deeply. And so that felt like a big ol' hug to the heart, being with them and just spending time under the trees, chilling, chatting, and having a good time. So that was our first kind of, coming out with his family, which felt supernatural and great, which was a great sign. We spent a lot of time at this point, spending time at my house in Modesto and at his place in San Jose. We both worked from home, so there'd be times where he would come and just, work from my house for, the week, and then we'd switch off. But it was pretty easy to get back into just full on hanging out, all the time. And we enjoyed it. We just had a lot of time until we didn't enjoy it. Okay. So the commute from San Jose to Modesto is an hour and 45 minutes with no traffic. So we did get really good at finding the pockets of time where there isn't traffic. There isn't a commute happening, which that's like a fine science, but we found it. But eventually we were like, look, this is something that we see as forever. And we want to take it to the next step again and move in together. So come April 2023, we moved in together in San Jose. And at this point, I was fully committed to finishing the book. I was spending a lot of time focused on writing, and it was kind of burning a hole in my soul. If you have ever worked on a project that you kind of started, stopped, started again, you want to finish it, it eventually just starts to burn a hole to where it's like, God, I got to get this done or else it's going to burn me up completely. And so I would write most of the time in the morning, and I rewrote the first 6 chapters many, many times, at least 5 or 6 times. And they were long. They were very long chapters. And I was doing that intentionally. Well, not the long part, but I was being very detailed in the writing and being very intentional about the detail and adding as much description as I could because I wanted it to read like a movie. I wanted people, when they're reading the book, to see the scenes play out in their mind, just like they would reading a novel. So there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of descriptive, language in there to help put you into the world that was happening for me at the time. So, you get to know the characters in the book, me, my sister Kelsey, Corey, my friend Julie, my boss Leanne, and so on. You hear their dialogue. I share a little bit about who and what they're all about so that you can really start to get to know characters just like you would a novel. And so at this point, I made a goal to write 4 days a week, and I had a tracking process that I would use on a physical calendar. And that really helped me stay on track because I needed to be very disciplined, and I made it, the 4 days a week. But something about tracking it visually every single day, I usually blew that number out of the water. So I usually would be writing 5 or 6, sometimes 7 days a week, because remember, the hole is burning in my soul, but also tracking progress, it helps with keeping consistent. I'm going to make a video about this soon, a little behind the scenes action on how I did that. And so if you're interested in that, just find me on Instagram so you can check that out. But my main focus outside of my day job in the entire year of 2023 was writing. I find that I write best in the AM. So often I'd get up and do that before the sun would rise. I also took it a step further, and I stopped drinking in June of 2023 to really hone in on this even more. I was trying to eliminate any barriers that might be getting in the way of me finishing this book before it literally killed me. And so, I stopped drinking in June. And that for the rest of the year, I did not drink. And something about that too, I think I find that my writing is best and at its highest quality when I feel fully connected to my channel, my Jessness. I'm hearing her clearly, and it's almost like a channeling from within. And I can tap into that more, which probably makes total sense, right? I can tap into that more when I have less substances to wade through. I don't know if I've got that right, but anyway, that helped me. So come 2024, I was still writing. Okay, the book wasn't done yet, but I had made significant progress in the previous year. In January, I took it even a step further. So not only was I not drinking and not doing any other side projects, because if you know me, you know I have many side projects, making earrings, making bookmarks, writing, I don't know, like social media interactions, but I decided to get off socials in January. So to really give myself the extra space so that I could be laser focused on the book. I knew that my life was about to get very busy come summer 2024, because there was, I like to call it the marathon of love, because there were a lot of people in my life getting married. And so that was kind of my stop point, like get all of this done before the weddings. So I really needed to hunker down because time is, as you know, something you can't get back. So I took it really seriously. So that was that. Come March 2024, I hired an editor, and this really helped me accelerate the work. So unlike my first book, Your 20s, I hired a developmental editor for Thank You for Dumping Me because I had a lot more to organize in the second book, and due to the format in which I was writing it, like a novel, it was entirely different than how I set up Your 20s. Your 20s is a book that can be written or read all the way through and make sense, or you can pick up one chapter, read that, and kind of popcorn style, and that works too. With Thank You for Dumping Me, it's chronological, it's written in the first person, there is dialogue, and you've got to read it front to back. Of course, you can pull out the self-discovery activities whenever you see fit, and those can be used at any time to fit your own season of life. But it being chronological and taking place in the way that it did, so close, I like to say just so close up, like I'm writing about it, or when you read it, it's happening in real time. So it's happening written in first person and in present time, which just, for me, just caused a lot of words. So I had about 150,000 words written, which is a lot. And when I met with my editor and hired her, her name's Bess. I call her Bess the Best. She's amazing. I learned so much from her. She's writing a book right now, her second book, or maybe it's her third right now. And I learned so much from her. But essentially she said, dude, you got to get down to 75,000 words. And at this time, I still had 3 chapters that were not written yet. So she helped me cut it down. She helped polish my stories by cutting all the extra crap out. And I mean that with a bunch of love. Of course, I'm not writing crap, or at least if I thought it was crap, I wouldn't write it. But she took out all of the extra that but still kept the most potent parts while keeping my voice and essence intact. So she took out some of the extra descriptions that I was sharing, or sometimes I was over explaining something, or sometimes I let the dialogue go on too long, or explain why I was doing what I was doing in the moment. And so some of those things got cut, which kept just, oh God, what has been kept is just like the bleeding heart, best parts, most potent parts of each of the scenes. And so it's really interesting because the writing process for me is very inward. It's very solo. It's very private. But as I was getting towards the end, I was physically having a reaction as my mind and body were preparing for it to come out into the world. It was almost like having a mini 4 seasons in a miniature short amount of time, going through that seasonal change in the midst of an overarching summer, it being summer in my life, a lot of, external activity happening and all of that, but having this internal experience of winter being this finishing the writing out, spring being hiring Bess and Marla, my book designer, which I am absolutely obsessed with the book's face, I like to call it. She captured it beautifully. And then I hired Lana, who was a copy editor. I invested a lot into this book. And then now summer, with the book now coming out to the world. So, we can have these underlining experiences within overarching experiences that really add to the texture of life. It adds to life's beauty and complexity that we don't always see unless we kind of take a step back to look at it. And so July 30th, the book went live. I was ecstatic. Opening the first copy shipped to me was a feeling I wish I could bottle up and drink. Honestly, many of my friends and family joined in to celebrate the milestone. I hosted a book launch party that was better than any birthday party I've ever had. I loved being able to celebrate something that I had put my heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears literally into. And so it was really, really nice to have friends from work, friends from yoga, friends from just childhood, siblings, my friends from improv, all came to support me. I was on top of the world, and I will never forget that feeling. One of the things I get great joy out of as a human being is getting to the other side of something. And so I liked, you've probably heard the analogy of, here's this mountain you're going to have to climb, but once you get over it and on the other side, it's going to feel so great. It's like that. I love starting something without the end in sight. Like, a book is one of those projects. Like, I'm going to start this. I know I'm going to finish it, but the end isn't even in sight because I haven't even gotten into the weeds of what this is going to take and where this journey is going to take me, because the writing is a journey in itself. It's got, I believe every creative project has a soul of its own. And so they're in that co-collaboration between the project and me being a human with free will. There's a journey that we're going to go on. And I love that feeling. It can also be hella overwhelming. But my North Star, my why, was established. We talk a little bit about the why and the importance in a previous episode, but my why was there. I knew that it was important to me to tell this important story of blindsided, breakdown to breakthrough, and how a breakup can really be an opportunity for finding yourself, learning more about yourself, and coming back to yourself. And so that was guiding me. And I got to tell you, it was worth every minute, every single minute. Being able to sustain a project that spans over years. So this book took me 6 years to write, on and off. But once I was fully committed, there was no going back. And so getting to the other side, closing the book on it, if you will, is one of the best feelings in the world. And I know that you've felt this too. Anytime that you've had something big or hard or scary or just joyful in front of you, and knowing that you're going to get to the other side of it and it's going to feel so good once you move through it. That's that. What else do I want to say about that? Creative projects. So I do feel like creative projects are a partnership, like I mentioned. And once I feel I've said yes to it, like with this book, Thank You for Dumping Me, there was a moment in oh my God, I almost said it again, 2018, where I said yes to it. I feel like the book's spirit, the project came to me and said, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to turn this into a book? And I said yes. And to me, I have a responsibility to carry that through. And so I feel that is how I show respect to creativity as an entity, as something I can work with and partner with, is that when I say yes, I follow through and do it, period. In August 2024, so a few days after, 10 days to be exact, after the book went live on Amazon, it's now available on Audible as well, but Kindle, Amazon in print and Kindle went first, and then later I recorded the audiobook. But in August, Corey, Charlie, our pup, and I went to my college town, Chico State. Any Chico State grads out there, Wildcats, if you will. I took him to all of my favorite spots. All of the spot. I'm like, we got to get garlic fries from here. We got to get a burger from the Bear. We got to go to Bidwell, all the classic places that that I loved going in college. And so we were going to all of my favorite spots. It was summer, of course, so the students weren't there. So it was really fun to just kind of walk around. One of the days we were walking downtown and I was showing him where I lived and where my friends lived, which houses we partied in, what happened where, all of that. we stopped in Riley's, a bar that I had spent many nights and days in with my friends. One of my fondest memories of this bar is actually going with my dad on grad day. And as a rec major, special events in tourism, all of the rec majors in every specialty had a tradition to go to Riley's before graduation and get a beer. And it was packed. And so my dad and I lined up for the event, extravaganza, at like 5:45 in the morning, and went in and shoulder to shoulder with people, had a blast. Someone actually, I don't know if it was an accident or not, but they rung the bell. And when you ring the bell at Riley's, it means you buy drinks for everybody in the room. And so I don't know what sorry dad or mom did that, but there were shots going all around for, I don't know how many people were crammed in there, but a lot of fun, really great memory. So we were hanging out in Riley's. There was only a few people there. At one point, I said to Corey, okay, I've got to go to the restroom. I'll be back. And he said, okay, I'm going to get us a couple more beers. Okay, cool. And came back to the table, and I'm looking at the table, and I noticed that the beers aren't open. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. The beers aren't open. Usually they open them for you. I'm looking a little bit more. I glance over at Corey, and I notice he's sobbing. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I notice he's proposing. It was the sweetest thing ever. I have never seen him cry. And he didn't even have to say anything. I was like, yes, yes. He had the ring out. I then noticed the bottles. They were 2 Sierra Nevada Pale Ales. He had made a custom label with the same font that Sierra Nevada uses. And it said, Jessica, will you marry me? Amazing. Wow. Talk about a summer, right? Talk about a coming out and warmth and just coming back to each other, burning up, burning hunk of fire, or what am I saying? Burning hunk of love. So yes, we got engaged. Wow. I'm just such a nerd. But listen, hey, if you were to tell me any of this a few months after Your 20s was published in February 2018, when the breakup happened, I would have told you to kick rocks. And this is why I am so passionate about the importance of trusting the unknown. It requires trust. It requires trust in the unfolding of our lives because we never know what's going to happen. Often our brain goes to the negative with that. Oh, you never know what's going to happen. You know, this could go wrong. That could be bad. This could be horrible, but it also happens on the flip side. Imagine all the good that may happen in the unknown. Things that our brain haven't even thought of. Our finger doesn't even have the pulse on. So trusting that there is something bigger than us, bigger than our negative thoughts, our worries, our fears, our feelings of self-doubt or limitation. Trust that the best thing ever can happen, even if you haven't ever thought about it. And that is leaning into the unknown. And that can really make life fun. And that allows me, leaning into the unknown and trusting the unfolding of my life is critical because I've done it before, and look at what comes from that. Out of a blindsided breakup, just allowing and trusting the unfolding of my life, come years and years later, 6 years later, I'm now engaged to the love of my life. I never would have thought that up. I never would have had that written in my journal. So it allows us to be open to what life is bringing us. And it can be a really magical thing, being open to the synchronicities and the ways that our life ties things together. And that's beautiful. And if you take anything away from my personal story, it's that the unknown can be so beautiful. So I want to share with you an activity from Thank You for Dumping Me. And this is on page 184 if you have the book. And this is a activity I picked because tending to our fire in summer and ensuring that it doesn't turn into a wildfire is going to take some awareness. And we can start with awareness in our body because our body does not lie. We can learn from it and lean on it for information. When the barbecues, the cannonballs, the outward distractions are pulling us in all these different directions, the body can really help us tune in and come back to ourselves as a way to calm and nurture, so that when we are getting ready to show our face to the world, that summer vibe, we can really come out from behind the writing desk and putting our work, ourselves, and our hearts out there. So it starts with the body. So this one's called Speak Your Body's Language, aka what to do when you can't feel your face, but you keep feeding it. So that's a theme that relates to the chapter. So, all right, it says, page 184, when was the last time you sat with yourself and tuned into what your body was saying about a particular decision? It's not something we're encouraged to do in school, so it may need a little practice to help get the sensation down. It's easy for our mind to come to a conclusion on its own. Naturally, it'll want to think our way to a solution. But that can limit us because our own biases, expectations, and judgments. The body doesn't have that level of subjectivity. Its truth is typically very short and sweet. When you find yourself uncovering a solution that is confused, convoluted, or very drawn out or detailed, more often than not, it's going to be your mind trying to think its way to a conclusion, to a decision. Here are some beginner tips on how to start speaking body language. Number 1, pay attention to physical sensations. Notice how parts of your body feel when you think about a particular decision. Is there tension in one particular area? Relaxation. Perhaps you feel warmth in a certain area. Or discomfort. Any and all sensations can provide insight. 2, ask your body questions. Mentally pose a question you need answered and listen to the feedback your body has. For example, how does my body feel about taking this job? Notice any immediate physical reactions. 3, start small. At first, practice with minor decisions as you learn to tune into your body. As you become more comfortable, you can start applying this technique to more significant things. And then 4th, write it out. First, tune into any sensations coming up for you, then write down what you feel and where you feel it in your body. The connection between your body and the act of writing it down can help you identify patterns and understand how your body communicates with you over time. That is the activity. I'm going to leave you with this closing thought on summer. Summer is an exhale. A radiant season of fullness and joy. Summer is bold and unapologetic. It invites us to bask in the moment, embrace freedom, and savor life at its peak before the tides gently shift again. With that, have a great day, and I hope to see you soon.